Okay, we are learning about globalization and we are going to ask the question, to what extent is the world becoming globalized? And the reason why we're asking this question is because we've been learning about culture. Globalization is one of the primary reasons why culture is spreading all over the world. There's a term that I want you guys to hear right now. The term is cultural diffusion. That means that cultures are blending together, and it's because of globalization and innovation and interdependence that this is happening. You can see here the image of McDonald's in Korea, I believe it is. Okay, so that's to show you that things that come from certain countries that are primary parts of their culture moving into other places around the world as a result of trade, as a result of interdependence, are causing culture to change. So the way people live, the way people think, the things people value, all of those cultural elements are fusing together. We're seeing cultural diffusion as a result. The question is this something that is bad? Or is this something that is positive? And of course, as always, this is going to be a to what extent question. To what extent is it good and for whom? And to what extent is it not good? Okay, here's another example. We've got Starbucks. This is one of the first Starbucks ever to be in India. Starbucks, which is an American company in Seattle, the spreading of culture. It's not just about coffee, it's about how people live, how they talk, how they think, what they do. Okay. And it's changing development, but it's also changing culture. Okay. Our world is globalized. It just is. It's constantly moving. Goods are moving through trade, international trade. People are moving and migrating. You learned all about that. As a result, culture is moving and it is becoming globalized and diffused. Ideas are moving. Okay, if goods and products and people are moving, then ideas are also moving, and some of that is a result of technology and communications that has increased rapidly over the last 100 years. Okay, so this is one definition of globalization: goods transferring, people transferring, and culture transferring and moving all over the world. Some more of a definition, okay? Think about how globalization means that we are all connected, okay? We are always sharing information and ideas across borders. Another way of thinking about it is the word interdependent, okay? We are not dependent on another country alone without them also depending on us. So it's mutual reliance between two places and multiple nations for essential goods that we want and need. And we can't continue on with our way of life without. I help you, you help me. We are interdependent. You saw the iPencil video. I want you to think about how that illustrates globalization. Okay? What does it tell you about movement? What does it tell you about connection and interdependence? Okay, trade. We've examined this a little bit so already in our development unit. So this is going to go quickly, but what is trade? Is it just exchanging something, a transaction? We're going to think of this as an example of the way the world is functioning. And it's not just limited to just going down to the Jewel and buying something. That product, if I want to buy some cream for my coffee, I'm not going to Jewel and just buying cream. There's not like a cow in the back of Jewel. There's so much going on: the paper of the carton, the dairy, the people that work for these companies, how it even travels and gets to the Jewel. All of that is trade. Okay. Why do people trade? They trade so they can work. They trade so they can support their families. They trade so they can eat. They trade so they can communicate. They trade so they can get the things that they need in order to live their lives. Multinational corporations, I believe we've already defined this, but one thing to emphasize is that a multinational corporation does business across borders. So this is not just a local company or a small business that exists in Geneva or in St. Charles or in your community. It's a company that trades all over the world, that has consumers and markets everywhere. So you can see some examples of different places and think about how those multinational corporations are just about everywhere in the world. Now, one thing to remember is their goal is not to save the world or help people. no matter what they say, their goal is to make a profit. And we're going to see how that causes some problems because some people are not going to benefit from trade and globalization as a result of that primary goal of a multinational corporation, which is make more money. Okay, free trade. We're going to define that as trade without restrictions across borders. Okay, what do we mean when we say restrictions? Well, a country can make a policy that we're not going to sell products made in China unless we hike up the price with a tax. Okay, and we call that a tariff. So what does that do? Well, the reason why we would do something like that is to encourage people in our own country to buy products made in our country, as opposed to buying products made in China. Quotas are the same thing in that we would limit the amount of products that come from another country and have them or limit a certain amount of money. Okay, what we were just talking about is protectionism. So protectionism is a policy that the government makes in order that their own domestic companies have a comparative advantage. We've learned about subsidies already, where the government provides almost like a large sum of money for any company in their own country to allow them to have an advantage, to have more technology or to be able to sell their product for cheaper so that they can compete with companies in other countries and have that comparative advantage. And that boosts our economy. Okay, take a look at this little video and tell me how this company stays competitive with its Chinese competitors. Okay, so increased technology. I mentioned that. Oh my gosh. My 9-year-old and 10-year-old are always on TikTok. I can communicate with people all over the world. I can buy and sell things with people all over the world. Just go on eBay or whatever, like Facebook Marketplace. The world is interconnected as a result of increased technology. Think about remote school and remote working. You could travel to India and stay with relatives in India and still go to school in St. Charles East as a result of technology. All right, the WTO is one of the organizations that helps free trade to continue. It's kind of like Congress, kind of like the UN, but it's representatives from all over the world who will work to make policies and rules about global trade. And their primary goal is to promote free trade and help not have protectionism. So they don't want you to do quotas and they don't want you to do tariffs. Okay, so they set rules for these things. The World Bank is also an organization that promotes free trade in that they want the countries that are not benefiting from free trade to get kind of an investment or a loan. So they'll give them a loan with the agreement that they're going to pay it back once their business gets better. Okay, because the United States is one of the highest contributors to the World Bank, we kind of make a lot of the rules, and those rules generally will benefit us. So there's interdependence, but who really gets the biggest advantage? It's usually the one who has the most power. Okay, IMF, also an international organization like the World Bank, provides loans to help with technical assistance so that countries can increase their development. So it might be projects that will help them develop. Again, the United States is one of the biggest contributors. Structural adjustments are agreements with the World Bank and maybe a poorer country so that the country promises to improve their development by increasing their exports, reducing that trade deficit that you read about. This means the poorer country will be better able to make those payments later when the economy is stronger. Okay, let's take a look at this. How does poverty continue, though, despite the IMF and the World Bank working to reduce poverty? Quickly, poor countries make an agreement, structural adjustments, that they have to increase their exports. So this causes price wars between those poor countries' businesses and businesses in other countries that have stronger economies. So they might not be able to sell their product for as cheap as like a product made in China because China's economy is stronger. So the price war is actually good for people in the United States and in the West because, like, let's say it's a soybean farm, and now China is lowering their prices on soybeans to compete, and a soy latte at Starbucks is going to be cheaper. I like that. That's good for me. Okay. But as a result, poor countries who are trying to compete with China have to reduce costs. And to do that, they pay their workers less. Okay. Which causes political and social unrest where people are like, this isn't fair. We're not happy. Our government's not taking care of us. And we're poor. We can't make ends meet. As a result of this, the World Bank, the IMF, those countries that are trying to invest in those poor countries to reduce poverty are like, whoa, 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 we're going to pull out because there's political instability and that's too risky. So as a result, there's economic collapse in a lot of these countries. And we see this in North Africa and the Middle East. We see it in places in East Asia. Okay, free trade and technology innovation leads to more free trade, more growth of multinational corporations. Walmart is huge because it's an international, multinational organization that has just benefited from free trade. We also see, as a result, increased movement of goods, people, ideas, and culture as a result. And then the world becomes more interdependent and more globalized. Okay, we talked about exploitation of labor. When you have to reduce costs as a multinational corporation or you want to make more money, you pay people less. Or you force them to work long hours so you get more work out of them for less pay. Or you don't provide a safe working environment. With COVID, you have to invest in safety measures that protect your workers. Well, that's going to cost money. Maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe I won't because the people will come to work anyway. Okay, these conditions make it less expensive to produce your goods, and that makes your company make a bigger profit. Okay, take a look at this clip and see what you think. Let's see what this teaches us about exploitation of labor, some things maybe we didn't know before. Okay, so what is fair trade then? Not free trade, fair trade. Fair trade is a way that organizations have tried to beat the problems of exploitation of labor. It's kind of counter globalization, but it's using trade and it's using what consumers want in order to help people who are exploited. So you might go to Fresh Time, a grocery store, and buy a chocolate bar, and it says fair trade on it. And you're like, why is it $4 instead of like $1.50 for a Hershey's at Walmart? Okay. Well, it's because they're actually paying their workers more. And you see the fair trade symbol on that chocolate bar. That's a promise to you that even though you're paying more money, you can feel good about it because people are getting fair pay for the work they do. I want to challenge you to look for fair trade symbols on products as you go to grocery stores. I'm not saying you have to buy them. I'm just saying notice them. Okay, let's take a look at this quick clip and then we're going to wrap this up. So moving on, we're going to move on and see how well we understand all of these concepts.